What's up, everybody? Nick Piles, publisher of 1851franchise.com, here with another episode of Meet the Zor. If you like these videos, click subscribe and you can learn more about other franchise brands. Today we are talking Island Fin Poké. Coming up next. Mark, actually, we start with you, then we'll talk about the brand. But how did you accidentally fall into franchising? What's your franchise accident story?
Well, I'm a lifetime restaurant person, all corporate jobs forever. Started in 1990 after I graduated Michigan State with a company out of the Northeast called the Ground Round. And I've worked for Darden. I spent good time with Margaritaville on the Strip in Las Vegas. And in 2016, longtime friend, more like brother, sent me a text message and said, "Hey, Mark, I quit my job of 20 years. What are we going to do?" So at that point, I had 5 restaurants in Vegas and 5 restaurants in Southern California that I managed. And in Southern California at that point, poke was on every corner. I mean, it was everywhere. And loved the food, loved the concept, because it's really good food and it's really simple to execute. So I flew Paul out to California and I took him to all the places that I liked and all the places that I didn't like, because I felt like if we were going to do it right, you needed to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. So we ate around town and then got in my truck and started heading back to Las Vegas. And on that trip back to Las Vegas is where we really hammered out the details of what the concept was going to be. So we were just going to, open up in Orlando and have 2 or 3 restaurants and, go to the beach and play golf and, work with our kids. And, that first restaurant in Winter Springs just kind of blew up. And someone approached us about franchising. We thought, what the heck? Why not, share our dream with as many people as we can share our dream with? And here we are. And, it's been good. It's been bad. It's, there's a lot of things I would do differently, but no regrets.
How many units do you guys have today?
We have 21 open. We'll open 2 more this year.
And how many franchisees represent those 21?
We have 1 company store and 20 single unit owners right now.
I'll unpack their story, but go backwards. You're working at these other restaurants.
Uh-huh.
And obviously your friend ends up being the person that pushes you over the edge to say, what would it look like for us to do this together?
Mm-hmm.
But did you consider becoming an entrepreneur or a restaurant operator throughout this time that you're helping others build wealth for them through restaurant ownership?
Oh, goodness, yes. I opened a bar and failed miserably. Lasted about 18 months. And the beautiful part of it is, I learned a lot. Number one, I'm married 25 years this past July. And
Congratulations.
the thing is that Terry is just super supportive. So after we failed at the bar, it would have been very easy for Terry to say, shut up, work your job, whatever. And when this all came around, she didn't even hesitate. She's like, it's your dream, go do it. And so you have to have that kind of support if you're going to have any kind of success at all. So
sometimes I look at failure. It said fail miserably at the bar, but failure is only failure if you don't learn something from it. I would imagine real estate selection, customer acquisition, customer maintenance, supply chain management, all the things that you pull from there had to have carried over, that no matter what you were going to do next was an asset. Even though it's a costly asset, it's still an asset for what you're trying to do.
100%. I mean, and we took over an existing bar that had a crappy reputation. And in my head, I'm an ops guy. And in my head, having great food and giving a great experience could get past that. Well, it just didn't when you don't have a boatload of cash, and our rent was like $9,500, and that's just obnoxious for a sports bar. So, it was a master's class in what not to do. Exactly what you said, but we also learned, when we took over the bar, we did everything like we would do in a corporate restaurant: prep lists, cleaning lists, checklists, whatever. And then when we did Island Fin, before we even opened that first restaurant that was going to be one of two or three for us, we did the exact same thing: checklists, order guides, prep lists, et cetera, so that when the health department came in that first time, he looked at me and he looked at Paul and said, "You guys worked for Darden, didn't you?" and laughed. And I'm like, "Yep." And he was just laughing because we had everything dialed in: temperature checks, all of these checklists. So it was, taking what you learn from failing and moving on.
I would imagine you were able to bootstrap a little on unit 1 too, right?
Oh goodness, yes. Yeah, we worked as the project managers in construction. We, we worked full time on the business for 6 months before we opened. Everybody in that community knew Mark and Paul, the Pokey guys, period. So
take that insight. I mean, obviously it's hard to translate grit and hustle over to a franchise owner, which I'm curious. You have these 20 single unit folks. Do they have scale mindset? Are they listening to the mistakes that you guys have made and obviously corrected in this new unit? How is that all translating over to the franchise owner?
some of the franchisees listen, and they're the ones that are successful. And some of them don't. Some of them forget why they bought a franchise, right? For the model, for the playbook. And they want to, reinvent the wheel. And our model works one way. Our model works the way that we built the model, and you need to follow it. Just like Chick-fil-A, just like McDonald's, just like anything else. And that's just what it is. So the franchisees that get that understand it and are successful, and the ones that don't struggle, and they'll continue to struggle.
Picture one of these franchisees that is struggling in your head. What do you wish you would have asked them at Discovery Day that would have, whether they would have put a blanket statement over it or not, but what is that question that you would have asked in retrospect?
Well, we contemplate that all the time, actually, and we're going to actually start using strength finders testing, because when you're in the sales process, you're dating, right? And you're putting your best foot forward, and you really want to make out with Mark, so you're wearing your lipstick and you've had your certs and whatever. But how do you root out how a person responds to adversity? How do you root out if a person really has grit? And I think that's what it is. Jim Way in Worcester, our first franchise open, he is our busiest restaurant. And I'll tell you right now, he worked very hard pre-opening. He was open for a month or two, and he took his foot off of the marketing gas and, started doing this, right?
Uh-huh.
And his wife called me and said, "Mark, Jim is struggling, need help, whatever." And 2 days later, Taylor and I were in this restaurant, and it wasn't all hugs and kisses, right? And Jim is 6'10". He's a big dude. And I put my foot squarely in his booty and said, "Jim, remember why you're here. And I'll
Yeah.
tell you right now, Jim's never looked back. You know, he's up double digits every year since he opened. Every year. I talk to Jim 2 or 3 times a day, 5 days a week. You know, and he's still, like, I'm in the truck right now. Why am I in the truck? Because today I'm the designated driver for the kids that are out doing the local store marketing, right? It's what it is. You know, Mullane is busy. I'm taking them out. Well, Jim calls me yesterday and he's like, Mark, hit 3 more real estate offices today, half a mile from my building. And the woman at the front desk didn't even know we were here 5 years in. And I'm like, Jim, you got to share that story with the other franchisees. And Jim right now is pushing me because, you know, I slack on the local store marketing. And quite frankly, local store marketing is key to what we do. We have to belong to the communities that we're in. That's what makes us great.
Yeah, especially in a crowded marketplace. You're forgetting about competing against poke. You're competing for the dollar of people that are going to spend money when they want to eat, and you have to get out there. So there's a few comments I have for that. And look, it's going to be your bar story as you continue to grow. You're going to be able to look back at what is the difference between a gym and a failing franchisee. The advantage that you have with a gym is on franchisee 1, they have to have some grit, because if they're going to be franchisee 1, that's a pioneer franchisee, and they're saying, yes, I'm going to invest in this brand that is not proven, but I'm still going to pay a franchise fee. I'm still going to pay a royalty, and I believe in this. So there's some grit in there. I think a lot about the bootstrapping that you go through in the early stages. Unfortunately, in franchising, bootstrapping doesn't align with franchising, but it really should. I don't know what the solve is, because when you start adding in a franchise fee and then you start adding in brand standards, it makes it a little complex. I remember long time ago, I'm sitting in the corporate offices for Mellow Mushroom. I said, what is the magic? And they said, we have no restraints on real estate. It could have changed by now. But they said, we want our franchisees, go find your space, bootstrap it. All we're mandating is the operational excellence around the menu. You figure out everything else. Like, let us give you some flexibility. And it's nice because you think about successful brands, when the bootstrapping is put back in place, sometimes you can access some of that grit and hustle, because now you get a poor franchisee who's coming in with a mindset of, I can do this better. They think they're buying a playbook, as in like they bought you off the shelf at Best Buy and now they get to decide where it goes. And the reality is, no, you've bought a seat within Best Buy where you actually get to be a part of the store. And I think there's like, it's a miss with every brand, and it's hard for franchisors when the check is being waived and someone is saying, I'm a fan of your brand. Like, it would be very difficult to say no, but you know, thinking through these lessons, you're gonna have another asset here as you select the next 20 that are able to come in. The last thing I'll say, I've told this story many times, but it's relevant here. I was sitting at a conference. I was in the audience. Top 3 franchisees were on stage. Number 3 came from middle of the pack to number 3. So he moved up, and they said, how did you do this? He said, I spent 10% of every dollar on marketing. The franchisee next to me in the audience pokes me in the side. He goes, that guy's an idiot. I was like, he's on stage, bro. Like, he's done it. He's figured it out. And so it's hard because sometimes the roadmap is there. If I'm a franchise owner in your business, and I'll say, like, when I start looking at the position of the brand, if it were me, I would lift up your story a little bit more, because it's what the health inspector noticed. These guys came from Darden. And so if I'm you, I'm not selling Poke as the business. I'm selling Darden excellence in a franchise model. That's the magic of the business.
Mm-hmm. That's funny. And you touched on so many points. And I look at the Chick-fil-A operating partners, and it's like everyone you talk to wants to be Chick-fil-A. And what they don't realize is that those Chick-fil-A operating partners are probably the hardest working people in franchise. But for what they do for the community and what the hours they spend in their restaurants and whatnot. So too many people want success, without having to build that foundation to get there.
Well, I'll add another piece onto that nobody really talks about. We sell Chick-fil-A is a beautiful brand, but on the business opportunity side, if you as a franchisee say I'm done, you've built up zero equity, you have no asset to sell, versus you put in that hustle and grit into something like yours, there's an asset built up that will build wealth for your family or support you in retirement. And so everybody talks about Chick-fil-A being the darling, and it is a darling of a brand. And they've like, in essence, bought employees in through their franchise model, but you just turn in the keys and Chick-fil-A still owns it. And like, we think through that. So they hustle. And I've talked with Chick-fil-A operators at the end, and they're like, I really did, like, I've built a good life for me, but I built my life as an employee, not as an owner. And it's just fascinating to see perception and reality, you know?
That's funny. Yeah, that's awesome.
So, Mark, I mean, like, part of your journey is learning lessons and cross applying it. Give me a sense of what the vision for the brand is on a go forward.
I want to continue to grow, but I want to continue to grow with the right partners. You know, how do you find people with grit? How do you find people that are a little more business oriented? Meaning, you know, enough of the single units. We're kind of like Subway, right? You can, you know, buy yourself a job with one, but if you want to buy yourself a lifestyle, you need to do 2, 3. That's just how the brand is set up. So we need to look for more sophisticated franchisees that understand that first year, if you think you're going to make back all of your money, you're fooling yourself. I don't know what business you open and in year 1 you make back your investment, because if you can point me to that business, I'd like to buy one for myself. So it's you know, being open and honest and really having hard conversations with people so that they understand that year 1, you're going to struggle, but everything you do is building a foundation for the future. No one owns the segment, right? There's a lot of poke players, but no one is really truly that leader. And that's what I want. I want more people to experience our brand, because our food is incredible, but our service stands out, because, like, we don't have trash cans in the dining room. After you build your bowl, we carry your bowl to the table. If you don't order a drink, we bring you a cup of water. We come and we clear your table. We encourage the kids that work for us to build relationships with the guests and engage. So what I want is for people to really experience who we are, because I think we make a difference in the segment and in restaurants in general.
So I'm gonna provide some feedback, unsolicited feedback on that. Here's what I see. I'm gonna start with the candidate. And this is my belief. I've always believed that you qualify someone to open 3 and you award them 1. What that does, it leaves enough for a rainy day and leaves enough for scale. Smart. Secondly, if it were me, what you're doing right now as a part of discovery, because your job on discovery is not just to educate them on what the business opportunity is, it's to discover them as a human. Whether it's an hour or 2, I'm putting them in that van with you, and I'm going to make them go and see what it is. I used to, when we had our big fancy office, I would drop a piece of paper on the floor by the garbage can in the conference room just to see if anybody would pick it up on interview candidates. And they would walk by, because I didn't want people that were just like, I'm only showing up to do X. I wanted someone to say, like, how can I make things better? And anytime someone picked it up, I was like, that person sees something that is intangible. I also started putting $20 underneath it just to see if that would help motivate the future. But I would think through that. When I get to your website, though, the message is not aligning with the vision. Again, like the dart in excellence, the way that you've put operational excellence throughout the system, the fact that you spent 6 months getting ingrained with the community before you opened up your unit, that helps define the why you why now. And so if it were me, the two most important things for you to do as this next stage of brand is take a step backwards and perfect the messaging, that the messaging aligns with who you're looking for. You want that ops guy or girl who had this moment, was like, well, wait a second, I've learned operational excellence. What would it look like to own my own business? And the second thing that I think is important from your story is you said you guys were like, hey, we're going to open up a few restaurants and we're going to golf and we're going to enjoy life. Like, make sure the life component gets mixed in here so that what you're doing is bigger than just owning a poke business. Now, all of a sudden, those things will start building the community, your internal community, to give you a shot at winning. I agree. Nobody's owned the space. The best brands that have been pioneers in a new space are the ones that say, let's go find the 25 right franchisees. We don't have a timeline on this. We're going to continue to operate our corporate stores for cash flow. Let's go find the right people and put them in here. Those are the brands that end up having legendary stories. And obviously, like, I don't want to take away from the good. You have 20 stores operating. Like, that's still a huge win. But take this to the next level and see where it goes.
Love it. Love it.
So, yeah. And Mark, let's just close on this. So obviously, we've talked a lot about philosophical things. Is there anything else you want a candidate to know if they've watched you up to this point in closing?
No, I mean, just you need to realize why you're doing it, right? And you're not buying a job. It's exactly what you just said. You want to be getting into a lifestyle. If you want to buy a job where you're, doing prep and making poke bowls all day long, I would prefer you buy something else. I want you thinking about, the big picture and spend 2 or 3 hours a day working on the business. And then when you're in the business, all you're doing is shaking hands and kissing babies. So
take that line. The first image I see on your website is a lady making the poke. Change that image instantly. It's not about the award winning. Get rid of that. Show, like, it should be back office. It should be in that tiny little office in the restaurant of someone just cranking through, like, what's my game plan for winning? Like, you have it. Just listen back to this, and then just go cross apply it and watch what happens.
That's awesome.
I love it.
Love it.
Well, Mark, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. Loved learning your story, and appreciate getting to know you a little bit.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yep. For Mark, I'm Nick. This is another episode of Meet the Zor.